Hi, Beth. I'm waiting for a bus.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. What were you saying?
I said I'm waiting for a bus.
Looks like it. So where's the bus headed?
The bus is headed, well, it's coming in from the highway department.
Uh-huh. And where is it going to?
And I think it'll go back to New Salem afterwards. Tim doesn't have an easy time getting on Zoom, and we're doing the highway superintendent tonight, so he will be joining me on my bench waiting for a bus. Yeah, any minute now.
Right.
Right.
3 minutes to go.
It's always better when somebody shows up, then I know I haven't locked anybody out, because that was.
Oh, there's the man of the hour. Oh, the men of the hour.
Yeah, you're gonna.
There they are.
Yeah.
On mute. How y'all doing?
Doing okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a miracle to look into the backyard and see all this green.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally unexpected.
The green.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we have a big garden in the back, and so we have, beds of vegetables and, flowers, perennials, the whole thing. But in between, we have, quote, green. My wife refuses to call it lawn
Okay.
because it's a mix, we just keep it green.
Mm-hmm.
Any number of green things are welcome.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be pretty cold, I think, going forward, isn't it? Things.
Yeah.
It might
Yeah.
become less green.
I'm afraid so.
Mm-hmm. Hey, George. You on mute, I think.
I am on mute, but I am off it now. How's it going?
Good. How you
Good.
doing?
All right.
Becky was there momentarily, but she bolted off somewhere.
At least we can see what's going on down in town hall. Nobody walking by.
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Just hit your unmute button.
Hello. Hi, everybody. How's that?
Your hot water tank installed?
Yeah. Is there something going to happen tonight?
No, you just you had that contractor working at like 8:30 at night.
Yeah. All right. Oh, that was for a heat pump.
Oh, that's for your house. That's not for your hot water.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, he was is a guy who works for Pickering, was moonlighting, literally.
Yeah. Full moon last night.
Becky, where are you? Are you in the hall?
I'm
Yeah.
for a bus.
What's that? Where are you?
Waiting for a bus.
I'm in the hallway.
Recognize the bench.
Okay.
He's waiting for a bus.
She's waiting for the bus.
Yes.
Tim Hunting is going to join me on the bench. We're going to share a computer because he's not the most comfortable with Zoom.
Okay.
So he will be here by 7:15.
Okay. Hi, Susie.
Hey there, Jim.
Hi, Melody. I think we are just missing AJ.
December 1.
Nice winter scene, Melody.
Melody, unmute.
I like snow and I'm bummed it's been all rain.
Mhm. It looks like you're about to get pounced on.
Yeah, just a jaguar on your shoulder. It's always a good thing.
Oh, you don't show any signs of stress.
Mm.
Hi, AJ.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
I think we got everybody, so I think we can call a meeting to order.
Great.
That's good with everybody.
Good.
We've got Tim reviewing the highway budget at 7:15, so maybe we have a little bit of time to go through the minutes before we start with Tim,
Mhm.
if that's good with everybody.
Sure.
Okay. We should all have the minutes from AJ that were sent out, I think, yesterday.
Yeah. I should mention I'm missing a bunch of attendees from the other committees for that first hour of our meeting where we were joining. So does anybody recall if there were members of either of those committees that were absent? Because otherwise I'll just add the full
Select board, school.
right.
Yeah.
AJ, you can just look at the select board agenda because she got everybody.
Okay. You mean the select board minutes?
Yes, the select.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'll just pick them up from there. So I'll make that change for sure.
I just had a couple of minor things, AJ.
Sure, go ahead.
And again, it's on the first page, the third bullet from the bottom.
Mhm.
You just have this year at the beginning of the sentence and at the end. So you just probably want to take one of those
Oh,
off.
yeah.
Just eliminate
Thanks.
one of those.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
And on item 4, on the tax rate,
Yeah,
you have 22.66. And I note, I saw on Kevin's the last rollout, he had 22.61.
Okay.
There was a change.
Okay, so should we just leave it the way it is then?
So AJ has it correct for that night.
Okay,
So
All
it's
right, so
since
we're-
been revised.
There was a
Okay.
before change and it went back to select board meeting.
okay, so we'll just leave it alone then?
Yeah, we could add it into tonight's minutes, I guess.
Okay. And the last item is just another, because people might misinterpret, but item number 6, the
Yep.
last bullet, it's got school choice revenue is preparing a budget request. Should that be
Okay.
something like when instead of is, or?
You're right. Yeah, when preparing their budget request. Okay, sounds
AJ,
good.
Yeah,
could
that's
I
all
make a
had.
comment about the minutes?
Yeah, please.
On the same item, number 6,
Yep.
the first bullet point, you point out that the town's position has been that the school choice funding cannot be counted on the revenue side. which is
Right.
but the second one, BG has researched how this issue is treated on other towns and shared some related documents. I'd just like
Yep.
some mention of the state guidelines, which I shared with everyone, which states actually that the funding can be included in consideration of the budget for the school, which I think you have in your records, the exact quote, if you wanted to quote it.
Okay.
Was the pertinent document that I provided to the committee that I think should be mentioned in the minutes.
But
Hi, Bob.
I think
Go
there's
ahead.
some confusion on that. I thought what we clarified was what the state said is that the school can include it in their revenue, in their budget. And the documents you brought us were school budgets where they initiated how to use school choice funding.
I'll just read the quote to you, Susie. It says from the state guidelines, the appropriating body, however, may take into account the availability of school choice revenues and other special revenues in deciding how much to appropriate above the net school spending requirement. That's the pertinent budget the information from the state document that I quoted to the finance committee, which actually says that we can consider school choice money in our budgeting for the school. which is what we've been told up until recently, we could not do. We could not even be aware of it or in any way calculated into our appropriation. So I thought it was important for us to have that. I tried to convey that with the documents I provided to the committee, and I'd like that to be clear in the minutes if it's okay with the rest of the committee.
Becky,
So maybe in the interest of time, I can sort of take a stab at it and bring it to our next meeting, and we can vote on the minutes then. Just because I
Great,
know,
thank you. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. well, we've got a, yeah, Becky, you have a comment.
Yeah, I think Bob misrepresented what the town position was. We have not pretended that the school choice does not exist. We have made sure that it is visible on the revenue side of a town budget so people are aware of the amount. The authority to put it in as a revenue line exists for the school committee. While we can be aware of that number, the decision to appropriate that money or the decision to put it in the budget belongs only to the school committee. So the knowledge of the amount has been carefully presented so that everyone knows it since school choice revenue started to flow.
George, did you have your hand up?
I would just add, I mean, the way I interpret it is what Bob says, if you listen to what Bob says, it makes sense. We are allowed to include it in the budget. But as Becky points out, it's at the discretion of the school committee. We're not allowed to recommend it and we can't demand it from the school. But if the school chooses to do that,
You can
help fund your budget. Is that a correct statement, Becky?
Yeah,
It's,
I think so. Yes.
the point is we can do it, but it's not up to us to make the recommendation.
I'll keep it short, but George, I just want to remind you that maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago, the finance committee went and looked at the school budget request and we deducted the school choice money. And we had a big argument, a big discussion about it at the time. I don't know if you recall that, but we were told at the time that it was illegal for us to consider that money when we stipulated the appropriation for the school. And so I'm just countering that with the document that I provided. Not saying that we should, not talking about how the budget's presented, I'm talking about whether we can consider that money revenue to the school or not. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Not okay.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna end up in the right place for what Becky presented, and when the documents you presented us were actually from the school budgets, when the schools put that money in their lines. And that's what Becky has represented has to happen. And if you don't, that has to be represented in this minute.
All right, so I think I'll take a few minutes after our meeting to try to add a couple of points and share that with you, and maybe we can discuss it again at the next meeting.
Thank
Does that
you.
work for everybody? Yep.
Thank you, AJ.
Yep.
Okay, I see Tim is present. Do we want to start with the highway budget?
Yes.
Good evening, Tim.
Good evening, everyone.
And everybody should have Tim's budget
Okay.
worksheet. That shows the fiscal year 21 and the fiscal year 22. Does everybody have that?
Yep.
Okay. So Tim, do you want to lead us through?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So if we start right at the top, the snow removal materials. As you see my note there, I've asked for that to be level funded. The sand and salt prices are actually less this year than they were last year, which is a good thing. And depending on what kind of winter we have, that may be reflected in how much we spend. I think last year we just about broke even. I think we might have given back $500 or something like that. So that's a pretty average year.
So Tim, you're saying that we ended up pretty much on budget for snow removal materials.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, in the last fiscal year.
Yep. Some
Within
years,
within a few $100s or so.
yeah, if you get a bad winter, you know, it's gone over in the past. It's gone over by, yeah, it's gone over by 25. Is it 25,000?
Yeah.
That much? Yeah.
20 at least.
I was thinking 20. Yeah, it can go that high. So, I think that's a good figure to leave in there. So, any questions?
Good to me.
Okay, so going down the list, the highway uniforms, that's also level funded. We finally do have our third employee now, so that's 9 shirts, 9 pants, 2 coats for 3 employees. That's a fairly reasonable figure, considering the company we had a couple of years ago. I finally got rid of them. They were just ridiculous. So I think that's a fair figure. And the uniforms is kind of a big deal. When we work on equipment in the garage, I mean, those things are filthy. I wouldn't want to put them in my washing machine. So, so that's that. Tools and equipment, FY21, there was 2,800. I'm fine with reducing that to 2,500. I don't anticipate any major purchases for tools and equipment, so I think that's fine. The same with highway expenses. FY21 was 2,686. I'm fine with putting that to 2,500. We actually gave back in FY 2020, we gave $100 back, so I'm fine with reducing that a little bit. Highway materials, that's level funded. That's all kinds of materials other than gravel. There's a special account for that. Let's see. That covers a lot of the blacktop expense. It covers things like guardrails and tree work, which there's been a ton of tree work this year. I've never seen so many rotten or diseased trees that we've had to take down. We've still got another couple of days just to try to get caught up with the trees. So yeah, that covers things, those kind of things. And I'm fine with level funding that. Machinery maintenance, I put that in for level funding as well. There's, of course, everything's getting more expensive to repair. We have 3 big dump trucks, CDL dump trucks. We have 1 small dump truck. We have a pickup truck. We have an old road grader. We have a backhoe. We have a bucket loader. We have a John Deere farm tractor, you know, and various other small engine repairs and things like that. So that usually gets used up fairly easily in the course of a year. And I'm not planning on asking for any capital items this year. So usually what happens is your oldest piece is the one you start spending a lot of money on. The oldest truck is an 02 Sterling dump truck. And it's still a good truck. It runs well, does everything fine. So I don't have any reason to ask to replace that, at this time. So yeah, that's machinery maintenance. Gravel road maintenance, that's also level funded at 30,000. And that is anything to do with a gravel road. I mean, obviously gravel's a big expense. And it's there's other expenses on gravel roads besides gravel too. Yeah. One big thing that's been happening in the last couple of years is because the years have been so dry that people on the gravel roads, there's a lot of dust, particularly Montague Road. Pratt Corner is another one, the upper part of Pratt Corner and the lower part. And we spent a little over $5,000 this year on calcium chloride to have it sprayed. And the feedback I get from residents is that it's helped tremendously. Montague Road, I mean, that's where people go the fastest on a dirt road. And if it's dusty, it's pretty bad. And the last couple of years we've had it sprayed, and it's made quite a difference. And I'm anticipating that that's going to be the norm from now on. So that's a big, that'll be a big expense. If we spend $5,000 this year, if we continue to have dry summers, I can see us spending $7,000 or $8,000 on calcium. So, and the next category is road markings. That's all the center lines. And it's also like the school crosswalks. It's stop lines around town hall. There's parking area. There's handicap parking. They mark those. The library has some parking spaces. There's a crosswalk down at Lake Loyola. It covers things like that. And then of course the center lines. And there's also sidelines on two of our roads, Leverett, Cooleyville, Prescott. There's edge lines, which they also call them fog lines, and they're pretty nice to have there when it does get real foggy. There's only two roads that we have them. I mentioned Leverett, Cooleyville, Prescott. The other one is Lakeview Road, and of course down there it gets foggy because of the lake more often than some other roads. So it's a good idea to have those edges marked so people can see when it's reduced visibility. We can that account usually gets spent without any problem. I don't have enough money to do all the roads every year, but usually we'll do a few. As a matter, this fall we just did Pelham Hill and West Pelham, and it works pretty well if you do a couple in the spring and then do a couple in the fall, and then none of them get too faded. So that works pretty well. So that brings us down to our last category, the catch basin cleaning. That account was started when we did the footprint road. The state did the footprint road project on Leverett, Cooleyville, Prescott. That's actually a requirement. There's 96 structures on that stretch of road from 202 to the Leverett town line. And the state actually requires us to monitor them and to clean them out. And we actually gave back quite a bit in that account this year. But there's a reason for that. For one thing, we carried over like $1,100 from the previous fiscal year in that account, which now looking at it, considering how much we gave back, we probably didn't need to do that, but you don't know that at the time. So, but it does depend on how bad a winter you have too. That definitely factors into it. The thing is, if you had to clean every basin, we have about 118 catch basins in the town of Shutesbury. If you had to clean every one of them, it would probably cost 10 grand, but you don't. We used to do that on our main road, Leverett, Prescott, Cooleyville, or Cooleyville, Prescott, but we found that a lot of them, there's certain key ones that collect a lot more sand than others. So we came up with a way to check them with a rod, and they all have sumps that are they're all interconnected with pipes, and they have sumps in them. The sumps are usually anywhere from 3 feet to 5 feet deep. So what that is when the water comes into it, it kind of settles out and all the fines sink into this sump, and that's what they pump out. What you don't want to happen is have it come up as high as the pipe and then have it start flowing into the pipes, because then you got a problem. So I have Steve go out and monitor them. And so we're certainly not pumping all of them in any given year. Last year, it's kind of difficult to get them. Everyone wants to do it in the springtime, which makes sense because it's right after you're done sanding, and that's a good time to get them. But spring's such a busy time for everybody. So a lot of the towns are after these guys to get them, to work. And it can be kind of difficult to get them. I'll call the company in Springfield, and sometimes it'll be, a month later that it can actually get them there. So it's not like you can call them up and have them come the next week. It doesn't quite work that way. But so last year we did only 19 catch basins, and it came to like $2,145. So if the budget is, $4,000, that's just 19 basins and half of it's gone. So that was only one day. We had them for just one day. So I guess what my point is that if we want to reduce that by $1,000, I'm okay with that. I would hate to, because we gave back quite a bit this last year, but without the 1,100 carryover, it would have been $2,855 that we would have given back if the budget, if it was that 5,000. So if you think about it, 2,145, if that's just one day, we really would only have about one other day and you'd use up the 4,000. So if you're okay with that, I mean, I don't mind reducing it by 1,000, but I'd hate to, say, oh, gee, you didn't use it last year, so let's just put it down, to $2,000 or something. Well, that doesn't even buy us a day. So, I don't know what you think about that, but.
Tim, I think you know best, right?
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the basins don't need to be pumped every year, obviously.
Yeah, they don't. It's just with so many of them, like I said, there's like 118 of them, and we'll go out and check them. But just to have one day to have them come, if that's all the money we had, I'm afraid that, if we get a bad winter, the ones we didn't pump last year are probably going to have to be pumped this year.
So you probably need 2 days, right?
Yeah, I think if we can get 2 days, we'll be okay. So I'm fine, with putting it down to 4,000, and let's see how it works. Pardon?
Why would you put it down if it, most years you need
Under.
2 days?
Well, 4,000 would buy 2 days.
Okay.
It would, well, yeah. That was a long day. That was actually 11 hours
Okay. Good.
for that price. So on a normal, if it would buy 2 8-hour days, the 4,000 would, I'm okay with that. I think we'd be okay with that, but.
What's the history, Tim, prior to last year? You said last year you had 1 day, but what about prior years?
I did look that up. I don't have the figures with me, but I know when we've had 4,000 or 5,000, that we've spent it fairly easily.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I'm fine with going with 4 because we thought we had to pump them all, and it's about all you can do to pump these on Leverett, Cooleyville, Prescott in 2 days. Like I said, there's 96 of them. If you pumped every one of them, you'd be there for, well, you only did 19 in 1 day, so you'd be there like 4 days or more. And of course, the price keeps going up. They're up to about $195 an hour now, and it's not a cheap machine. It's pretty expensive machine. So, I'm fine with the 4,000. We'll try it. If I find that we're short, we can talk about it next year.
And if you have an emergency and you need to get one pumped immediately, you can always come to us for a FinCom reserve transfer.
Yeah, absolutely. If we run out and we find that there's a problem, I mean, the biggest fear is that if that level gets up to where it's going to start getting into the pipes, that's not good, because then they have to jet the pipes. It would get real expensive, and we haven't had any of that yet, but we want to make sure we don't get to that point. But
Jim Hemingway.
Yep. Hi, Jim.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Oh.
Sorry about that. I thought
Okay.
I was in the clear. The new plow truck, the new diesel plow truck with its Tier 4 diesel engine, have you had any trouble with that? I know that a lot of people with the newer diesel engines have had maintenance problems, serious maintenance problems, costly ones, and I was wondering how the truck's been holding up.
Okay, that I assume you're referring to the 017 Western Star.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the newest one. Yeah. So far, so good. We haven't had any problems. We have to add DEF with the tank regularly. No, that's been a real good truck for us so far. We've had it now for, going on 4 years, and yeah, Steve Sullivan drives it. That's his truck, and he really likes it. So knock on wood, we haven't had any problems with it, really.
Oh, that's good news. I'd sure hold on to that 02 truck, because that's of course outside of the Tier 4, Tier 3, and all the rest of it, and they're becoming more valuable with age because they don't cause the headaches that the new trucks do.
Yeah.
Susie.
Yeah.
Hi there. I appreciate your effort to keep this budget low, or even lowered some of the line items. I do want to know if, I am concerned about sort of the philosophy penny wise and pound foolish, and the whole discussion around cleaning the drains kind of feeds into that. If you push things off, then you can get into a situation where it costs more to resolve cleaning out the basins. So I wondered if there were any other projects that you have been sort of holding back on because it would increase your budget, but if it falls under the rubric of penny wise and pound foolish, I'd like to know up front so that we could find a way to address that. We're talking about addressing the basin one with go ahead and do what needs to be done, and if it runs over budget, ask for the money, and that's a solution. But also a general perspective of what can you take care of before it becomes a bigger problem, and if there's any projects you're delaying, do they fall into that category?
I don't think so, really. The whole catch basin thing, that's a maintenance thing. And as I said, we do go out and we've got a way to monitor that. So we're making sure that they're not, just because we don't have the money, that they're not doing something detrimental to the system.
Good.
And we'll keep doing that for sure. As far as other projects, I think we're in pretty good shape. I mean, there's a big project coming up on Locks Pond, as you know, that culvert, but we're more advisory on that, and just kind of watching and so forth on that. We're in pretty good shape on Wendell Road when that has to be detoured, now that we've got that big culvert replaced. Yeah, just a lot of maintenance. I mean, the big help to the highway department has been getting that third man. I mean, I've already noticed the difference. He's only been here for a month or month and a half, and we're able to get a lot more accomplished with the three guys. So that's a big help. But no, I don't think that there are any projects that are really suffering due to lack of funding. I don't see it that way.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do you have set aside for tree work? I know this has come up as an issue on the MLP.
Well, yeah. Well, tree work can actually come out of, there's two different accounts that it can come out of. It can come out of highway materials, or it can come out of gravel road. If the trees are on gravel roads, then that money can be used because that's a maintenance of a gravel road. So that's where I take that money out of. If they're on blacktop roads, or wherever, anywhere other than gravel roads, then the money can come out of highway materials, which is kind of a good way to have it, really. I mean, tree work can get, let's see, we've spent probably I think it's 5,300 on tree work. And we actually have more, as I mentioned. I mean, we've had a few wind events where, nothing real serious, but there's been several trees knocked over. The most notable are down on January Hills. I'm sure.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, it looks like a tornado came through.
Yeah, I know. I was down there.
Yeah.
With a chainsaw.
One thing that we have talked about, and this is more for a capital need, but I've talked with Matt Boucher down in Leverett. He's the highway boss there, and we had talked about the possibility of maybe going in together on a wood chipper. And we get along fine. I think that would be good. We could share the maintenance and so forth. The only issue I can see with that would be if you had a catastrophic event and then both of you needed the thing at the same time. That would be the only bad thing about that. But
flip a coin.
Pardon?
You flip a coin.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, I'm not opposed to that idea. We have rented Clark's in the past, and we've actually rented one over to West County in Greenfield. Clark's is nice because it's close and convenient and so forth. It's more expensive than what we can get at West County. I don't mean to badmouth Clark's at all, but it's twice the money. So, when we have a lot to do, I try to, if we can get it over there, I try to do that. But
is your budget for tree work, is that really to take care of damage that's already on the ground and done? Or is there any preventative component to it at all? Stuff that, you know, when you drive by, you know, oops, that one doesn't look too good. Let's take it down and get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's anything really to do with trees. It can be roadside trimming. I've been here since 1999, and we have, I think, just about every single road we've had them do side trimming, and that's not the line work. Usually the utilities take care of that. So we don't. I mean, we will certainly cut trees around lines if we have to, but they usually will trim that, so we don't have to worry about it. But you know, there's a lot of other trees that overhang and disease trees and so forth. So yeah, I mean, the budget, there's not a tree line per se. It's just part of the operating budget. As I mentioned before, it comes out of those two accounts. But yeah, there's been a lot of diseased, dying trees this year. I don't know. It's been kind of unique, really. Yeah.
Susie.
So there's a budget line called tree warden expense that went from 4,400 something up to 8,900. Does that help take care of the trees, that tree warden expense?
Yeah, it does. I'm sure that what's the tree? Don, yeah, Don could, you know, better speak. Don and I have talked, and you know, I told him I've given him some information on who he could hire and so forth. You know, because he's out looking at trees all the time, and I couldn't say what he's spending his budget on because I really don't know, but Becky wants to.
Yeah, last year he didn't touch his budget, and I felt he wasn't clear on what his real responsibilities were. But last year we had the utility companies here, and he was able to kind of get them to do most of the things he wanted done. But at this point, there continues to be things that need done, and I think we need to continue to talk to him because part of his strategy is not to increase taxes, but that's not helpful if we have dead trees falling down in storms. I mean, it's better use of funds to take them out before they become a hazard and take out our power lines and everything else. And the MLP doesn't need their fibers coming down. So
yeah, we've had some expensive repairs.
Yeah, so he needs to get a little bit more active.
George, I think, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to ask, I wanted to understand the line better. Highway, what'd you say was the highway machine? Which one was it again? Where the 24,000, the highway materials in the tree. So what exactly are you spending? Are you subcontracting to tree services?
Yes. Yeah, we are. That could, usually I will hire a couple of different tree services. I've got one that's very reasonable, but his bucket doesn't reach as high as the other one. I use Jim's Tree Service over in Greenfield, and he's got a 75-foot bucket. And honestly, most of the trees this year that we've had to take down, they're big trees. They're way up there. He's taken a couple 100-footers down for us.
Does he take care of the chipping?
Yes, they do. That's part of the, what they usually do is they'll charge you a daily rate. His old rate was $1,300. He may have gone up $100 on it. I've only paid the old rate, but that includes, it's two guys, it's the bucket truck, and it's a chip truck and a chipper. And he's got some big chippers, so yeah. It's kind of nice. They can take care of,
Well, I was wondering if purchasing our own chipper might save us a little money in this line, or allow us to use this line for other things.
I would argue against that, because when you look at Jim Tree's services, chipper, like, and I've seen it in action. I mean, that's like a $50,000 or $75,000 machine, and you know, it'll handle the really big stuff, which is what you want. But I haven't seen Clark's machine, but you know, his machine is probably lightweight compared to that.
Well, yeah, it is. But I will say Clark's machine, if we were to go in halves with Leverett, I wouldn't think we'd need anything any bigger than that. It'll take a 12-inch pine, which is
That's pretty good.
substantial.
Mhm.
And it's fine for the tree companies, but when you get called in at, 3 o'clock in the morning and, yeah, you can push the stuff off to the side of the road, but it's kind of on us to clean it up at that point. I mean, I wouldn't have a tree company come in just to chip brush that we could chip. It wouldn't be feasible. So I wouldn't like to give up on the idea of having a chipper, but I'm not opposed to, sharing the expense with Leverett if, but that's probably a conversation for another time. But it would be nice to have one, available. So.
AJ, did you have, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question on the budget. Is there any reason where we don't see lines for salaries and wages? Are those level funded from last year, and is that why they're not on the document? Or just wanted to clarify what was happening there.
AJ?
Yeah.
It's okay. Typically, on the budgets, we ask departments to present, unless they're changing someone's hours or requesting a change in hours, and the salary will only increase by the COLA that's determined by the 3 boards later in the spring, and that's why the department heads typically won't show the salaries.
Okay, so I think.
But some don't. But if they're not, if they're not changing hours, they don't represent.
All right. So if we don't see.
That's the same for all the budget presentations. We won't see the salary. We won't go through the salary.
Well, I think the police.
I saw him on the police, so that's what made me think of it when I was looking through this one.
Yeah. So he'll explain why he's doing that.
Got it. Okay.
We'll try to zero in on the number of hours people are working and stuff.
Okay.
So
I know that just one last thing. I know that we were kind of underspent the wages line last year, but I think that's because I remember you reporting to us that there was a vacancy that took quite a bit of time to fill, but did I hear you correctly earlier that that's been filled?
Yeah.
Okay.
Susie.
So Tim, with the 3 people that you have, and then you have is Will Stratford going to still fill in? So are you expecting any changes in the hours that you have from the current year?
No, we have the three employees that are, 40 hours, and then of course overtime in emergencies or whatever. And we do have a guy, Chuck Moore, and he's been working 30 hours, and he's a mechanic mostly, but we can use him for other things also. So he's not full 40 hours, but he is working 30. So.
And that's staying the same as what we have this year.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Tim, I want to ask you a tough question. Why are there 2 yellow lines on Pelham Hill Road and only 1 on Shutesbury Road in Pelham?
There always has been.
What does it mean?
Cost cut.
I personally like the two yellows. I think I don't know if you ever took a ride down North Valley and saw the lines that they had down there.
Yeah.
This year it's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the police would probably prefer two yellow lines because that indicates that it's a no passing zone. I'm assuming that. I haven't had a conversation with them, but we've always done double lines. I mean, most towns do, I think. I know Leverett does. I think New Salem does. Yeah, I mean, you'd save a little bit of money if you
I'm
did.
just curious. I didn't know what the difference is, other than
Yeah,
reference.
I don't know as it would be any great savings, really. I think the road looks a lot better with double lines on it.
Great, thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Tim? Or Tim, any comments? We're coming up on time for Dan to review police, unless someone else has a quick comment.
Thanks.
We're good?
Okay. Well,
Yep.
thank you all.
Thank you, Tim.
Appreciate it, Tim.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good one.
You too.
Susie, is Dan tied in?
Are you asking Becky?
I'm sorry. I can only see Susie. I can't see Becky in my. Becky.
Is out of the picture.
Oh,
Probably getting it.
I am here.
are you iPhone?
I am.
Oh, can we see you too? Or are we only going to hear you?
You're going to hear me today.
Okay.
Undercover.
You don't want us looking at you.
A little under the weather today.
Oh,
He's been out sick.
sorry to hear. Hope you're better soon.
Oh, me too.
There's nothing better than being sick and going through budgets with the local town. It's a good combination.
Oh, yeah. Nothing to get my mind off of being under the weather.
Yeah. So we all should have Dan, we should all have a copy of your budget as presented. So we can, I think all of us should be able to follow as you lead us through your proposed budget.
Right. My proposed budget was at the office today. I was not at the office today. So
Oh,
it might have to go the other way around a little bit.
Dan, do you
Oh,
want me to email it back to you?
What's that, Becky?
I can email you the budget.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you can.
Sure.
Because
Can you see it?
I thought did I email it to you? I must have.
Yeah, you did.
I just got the budget review. I didn't get the link for the budget.
Let me send you.
Or no.
Just hold on.
Holding.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just a Word doc, Beck.
Yep, I'm trying to find it the fastest way. Okay, I'm gonna just send you what was sent out to FinCom.
Okay. Oh, actually, you know what, Becky? You can probably see my sent. Hold on.
Right.
I have it.
Great.
It's definitely broken up a little differently on mine, but because it's on my phone. But this is it. Okay. I have it in front of me.
Great.
So whenever everybody's ready, I can start.
Jim, do you want to put it up on the screen?
Everybody, well,
We're good?
I think we're good.
Okay.
I've got a copy.
You know, unless somebody would prefer to have it up there. I think we all have it in front of us, and
Okay.
Dan, you have something in front of you?
I do, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm good with that. I've got mine.
I have it just a little chopped up on my phone because but no, I have it. So we can start going over it if you'd like.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the operating budget this year, again, for the third year, I believe, is going to be level funded. The operating budget did work out well last year and the year before to cover all expenses related to the department, including some more training that was done last year. Obviously, we've been in the process of trying to get some more employees at the department. And we've had some pretty good luck with some new additions. So I'm pretty excited about that. So that will stay level funded. Cruiser maintenance will also stay level funded. And then that is somewhat of a stipulation to hopefully getting a new cruiser for next year. But that will be, that is in my capital plan. The wages, I've actually put in it ended up being a $14,000 reduction in wages. And the reason being, part of the reason being is the reduction in sergeant pay. Because if I were to promote a sergeant, they are not going to have the amount of experience as the previous sergeant did. So that would be a reduction in that line item of sergeant pay. That went from $26 an hour to $23 an hour, or $26.76 to $23.76, I believe. That's savings around $6,000 there. There's also a savings in the part-time budget because we are only running the shift a week, or 2 shifts a week rather. So there's a reduction there. And also, because of the reduction in the sergeant pay, there was also a reduction in the overtime line because the sergeant pay was less. So the overtime line is less for that same position. So that brought down that brought down the entirety of the requested wages for this year by $14,000. I expect that to fluctuate to some degree, obviously, with contract negotiations, which are coming up this year. This is based off of this contract that is currently in place. So that could fluctuate by, I think last year, Becky, the last contract was 3, 3, and 3.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
I believe. Okay. Okay. So that can change, by 3%, give or take, depending on how negotiations go with the officers.
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
It's Bob Groves. I understood that we had a Justin, I think was his name, a person who was in the academy.
That's Marcus.
Marcus, sorry. Is that person still doing this? Or?
Yes, he is. Yep, he's still in the academy. He's doing very well. He's, I believe, second or third in his class for academics, and doing very well in the physical fitness portion. There's been no bad feedback from any academy staff. He's been doing very well.
Good. So is that his wages? I assume he's getting paid while he's attending the academy. Are those wages included in our budget?
Yes. So those wages are included in our budget because we are not backfilling that position, Bob.
I see. Yeah.
When he's gone, we're not backfilling it. What I've been doing is essentially we have lost a lot of overlap and a lot of, being able to work with somebody on cases and work with somebody on, calls. So we've kind of taken a hit on that. But what I've done is I've basically spread out what we have. We've been able to keep essentially the same amount of coverage, just with a lot less overlap and officers working alone a lot more, which is something that I try to avoid. And there's been times where I have authorized, a little bit of overtime when I think it may be busy, but we have essentially not backfills positions. So basically he's just being paid, but we're not filling it with overtime or anything like that.
Great. Thank you. Good.
Do you have the comparisons, Dan, to the prior fiscal year? I guess I thought we were following a process this year where we were presenting not just the budget, but also the prior year, prior year budget.
So the prior year budget for the salaries is listed. The prior 4 years are actually listed on the bottom of that budget.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that was what we were trying to do this year, and I apologize. But the as you can see, the wages have fluctuated, $2,000 or so up or down the past 4 years. And I don't want to say that the 110,000 is going to be the end all be all. I think that we may be back up to the 124,000 area. But this year with the differencing in wages because of the sergeant position that I got last year, was able to bring it down a little bit. So.
George?
Yes, so Chief, I have a question for you. I'm looking at the bottom of your schedule where you're showing the regular wages year to year. And at the very top of that, you have the overtime potential, holiday overtime, and excess overtime. Is that included in the amount you're requesting in the 110? It doesn't look like it is. Are you really wanting to add those to the 110?
I am sorry. I just lost you guys. I'm back now. What were we?
I'm sorry. This is George. I'll ask my question again.
Yes. Hi, George.
Hi. So I'm looking at the bottom section where you have the regular wages year by year. 124 in the current fiscal year, 110 next year. And I see that when you calculate the 110, you're showing us how much you're paying everybody. Do those numbers include the overtime potential, the holiday, and the excess overtime?
Yes, they should.
Okay.
Let me just do some quick numbers here. No, they do not. Nope. So before, so the total budget will be the 124,133.84 for the salaries, including the overtime potential. But the years prior, that is the regular wages, the regular pay line is where we have saved money. Okay. So to answer your question, no, it is not included. The total police budget is included at the bottom.
Right.
So, right. And the reason why I try to do that is because sometimes, certain things will change with contracts, such as the cell phone stipend, the night shift differential. And I just try to break it down a little bit more for you.
Okay.
Yeah, Becky,
Thank you, Jim. Dan, so you're saying, I guess it would be helpful if you summarized the numbers of what should appear on your police wages line, your total line, because you condensed, for 1 year, we had
Right, so,
items separated out and then we grouped them all back together. So I'm
yeah,
clear.
that was an issue this year. So what occurred this year, and Becky, you and I obviously have talked about this, and I don't know if it probably is on accounting side. By separating these items, it was not meant to necessarily separate them in the line items for the budget. I was not trying to make it more convoluted than it needs to be. What I was trying to do is just be able to be kind of the most transparent I could be with FinCom. So essentially all these have now been separated on the line items for the expense report. And what that has done is, all of these line items have not been taken from in the expense report. So I have a bunch of.
Dan, actually this year, we didn't, starting July 1st, we took all those separate lines back out of the expense report.
Okay, you did. Okay.
Yeah, there's only
Okay.
one left. For some reason, the chief holiday pay is still in there, but all the others are gone. All the overtime, all that, and the
Okay, perfect.
all out.
Okay.
So it's just how to match it up with your budget is where I'm unclear.
Okay, I understand that.
Susie.
So I was working on these numbers today and it looked to me like FY21 should be represented as 136,990. And then to compare for what's being asked for 22, that would be comparable to 124,535, which is the regular wages and then the other categories up top. His total police budget that's listed under the top box says 124,133, but when I added it, I came up with 124,535. So there is a 12,000, almost 12,500 drop from the
Right.
full 21 to the full 22.
So Susie, what you did is add up everything, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to be able to sort of see how it changed. And
Yes.
and I came up with the 12.5 change by looking
Okay.
at all of the ones in FY21 and then all of the ones in FY22.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess maybe, I could certainly simplify this. I mean, not necessarily simplify it, but I could do it a little less, I guess, scattered, if it makes it easier next time, if need be.
Yeah, that would be great. We can talk about how to make sure that your final wage number is balancing with the police wage line. That's the critical piece.
Right.
Because it's not, I hate to say it, but it's just not clear to me. What are you saying that you want the regular wage, the regular pay line to be 110,231.68 down from 136?
No. I think it would be the 124,133, or I think Susie said she had a different number.
Right.
This is the same way. So for the past 3 budgets, this is the same way I set up my sheet. I just use this as kind of a template and I switch the numbers around. So,
Susie, what did you say the regular wage line would be, the total amount?
So it's about what his is, but mine says 124,535.
You get that? Yeah, so what are the pieces that make it up is the question.
The pieces,
the pieces are all above it.
yeah,
Above
in the box.
that number.
They're in the box, the first box.
Right. It's the first 3 items plus the 110?
Well, the 110 is listed first, And then
Oh,
there's
that box.
in the
Okay.
top box, and then it lists overtime, holiday pay, night shift differential, and cell phone stipend. And if you put that all together, you get 124,535. And that you can compare to the current year, which is 136,990. And that's where he's saying there's a drop.
Right. So that line should say total police salary budget, 124,
Yeah,
130.
right. That is another point. It's wages. Right.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not.
the wage line. That's the wage request right there.
Okay.
Susie, where are
Yeah.
you getting the 136?
It's on the budget. It's on this year's
Oh, it's on the
budget.
budget. Okay. All
You'll
right.
see it on this year's expense report.
Yeah. Okay.
I apologize for that. I didn't, you
It's
know.
okay, Dan. We just want to be clear. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm just-
no, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just trying to break it down so that there was kind of justification for each piece instead of just having one big number. So.
AJ.
Muted.
Mute.
You hear me?
Now, yes.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to clarify a couple things for the minute. So, so we're seeing here a reduction of a little over $14,000 in just the old wages component, which excludes the overtime, night shift differential, cell phone stipend, whatever. And I think you said that there were two drivers for that reduction. One was that that we have a lower proportion of our wages being sort of charged at the sergeant rate as opposed to the
Yes.
patrol rate?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yep. So the sergeant rate that was last year, that we all sat down and talked about, basically reallocating some funds from the part-time budget in order to try to keep a sergeant that was
Right.
working currently. So the new sergeant that I would bring in, or a sergeant that would get promoted, would be at a substantially lower rate
Okay.
than what he was because of their experience.
Okay, so it's not that there's fewer hours allocated for a sergeant, it's that the rate is being decreased because of just
Yes.
credential. Yeah.
Yep.
credential. Okay, got
Yep.
it. Thank you. And then the second driver for this reduction, I think you said, is that we're moving down to 2 part-time shifts.
The two part-time shifts, because that was not in the old budget. So since we have lost an 8-hour shift a week, usually it'd be 20, yeah. So 22. Yeah, so normally it'd be around 26,000.
Okay.
For
But-
a part-time shift. That would be 3 part-time shifts a week.
Okay.
And now we are working at 2 part-time shifts a week. And that
Got
is
it. So that's the reduction, is that we're running 1 less part-time shift.
right. And the reason why
Okay,
that
got it.
reduction is this year is because that was the trade-off for the
Yeah.
sergeant
Got it.
pay increase.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Susie.
Dan, there's been some citizen feedback for, because you did a public thing, and there's been citizen feedback and input. Is there any particular reflection you want to make on what kinds of citizen responses you've gotten? What are people looking for? How are they feeling? Does it affect your projection of your hours and services?
Okay. Yeah. As in regards to kind of the open forum we had, Susie,
Yep.
and moving forward from that. Yes. So I think I've had actually, I would say maybe a half dozen people reach out and kind of be very, I would say, proactive in kind of asking, what they can do to help and what things that the town can do to help. It's been actually pretty refreshing to see. And I think that a lot of the stuff that, we were doing already, I think has really been reinforced, that it's something that I think is helping the town. And really it comes down to just being out there, patrolling more areas that may, not be patrolled all the time. So really putting direction out there for the officers to, go down to, Cooleyville Road by the New Salem line, going down into different areas of town and kind of making ourselves just be seen. And I think that, that really is something that the officers that I have on right now, Kristen is phenomenal for doing that and just getting out into the public, and she loves what she does. So it's really been helpful. And I think other than that, I've been in touch with a lot more people in regards to, there's been a lot more time on the phone, I would say, for me, just talking to people about kind of the current state of things with the pandemic, with schooling children from home. So there's a lot more, talks about, some issues with neighbors that have come up because people are just home more. So I think that has been something that I've been dealing with on my end, but it's been going well so far.
Any other questions for Dan? Anything else, Dan, that you want to point out or bring up for us?
I don't have anything right now. I think obviously I got to meet with capital planning at some point in regards to the cruiser. I have a complete understanding of kind of where the state of things is right now. But I think staying on the right track with the overall budget is important. The fact that we lost a very qualified person for the sergeant position kind of put us in a spot where we are able to save some money this year, which is good. I think overall it is a good thing. But, we're lucky to have, 3 really good officers in the department right now. One that's in the academy, and he's going to come out fully trained and ready to kind of use those tools that he's been taught at the academy. So I think that overall we're in good shape as a department, and we're hopefully going to be able to continue to serve with what we have and use the tools we have at our disposal.
So Dan?
Yeah,
Dan, I just want to make a comment. We did, as you mentioned earlier, we did get together, FinCom, Select Board, and Personnel to discuss your proposal last year to upgrade the salary schedule so that you could be better able to retain personnel. And in that part of that deal was that the sergeant would get a bump, and so that he could be better compensated. But now that person is gone. So I just want to point out that doesn't always work. I mean, I'm glad we're saving money. I'm glad you have a good crew that you're happy with.
Oh, I know you'd be glad we're saving money, Bob. I knew that was coming.
Well, it's what I'm here for, is to be sure that we don't spend any more of the taxpayers' money than we have to bring them the services that they want.
And I agree 100%, Bob. And I I try every day to make sure we're doing what we can with what we have. We lost that sergeant to UMass at $75,000 a year. We were paying $56,000. So, it is definitely tough. And you can't always save everybody and keep everybody with money. But the fact is when you have a department like that, and I think that person has some regrets of going there for certain reasons. But when you have a department like that around that has that type of money to throw around, and we can try and keep that person while keeping the budget still level funded and continuing to keep the services up, I think it was well worth the shot. And, I'm not happy that the budget is now reduced because of that, because he was a good asset to the town. But I think we have 3 great assets right now that are going to grow into something that will be able to fill that sergeant position and do a great job at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dan, maybe talking to somewhat along the same point. What's your overall sense right now, Dan, on your overall staffing and how it meets the needs for this town? Do you feel you're in the right place pretty much, or over or under?
No, I think I think we could use another part-timer. And the right one hasn't come along. I've been pretty lucky, to be able to find good people to work in the town, and application process for some part-timers. But they just really didn't, I guess, kind of fit the mold of what I'm trying to do. And I would rather not have them even try to work here if they're not going to do that. But as far as staffing goes, we're in pretty good shape right now. Essentially missing a 40-hour week employee to the academy. Something that the town is going to have to think about is that Massachusetts is going to be going to the post-certification model in policing. This is something where if you're a part-timer, you essentially need a full-time academy to work part-time. Current part-timers, I believe, are going to be able to do that. They are going to have 3 years to get to that point. And if they don't, they're no longer allowed to be cops. It's a real tough thing for the local, local smaller towns that depend on part-timers. And we've had many discussions at the Franklin County Chiefs level and at the Mass Chiefs level, and trying to figure out a solution for that. But I guess my point is getting the training done and getting the people well trained is going to be important, because this is something that's coming down the tubes and it's not going to stop. So we're going to have to basically have full-time trained officers that are going to be part-time. So it's going to be something to think about within the next year or two here.
Somebody had their hand up. Was it AJ or?
Yeah, I just
yeah.
had a quick thing.
Yeah.
What the wages or the rates that are built into your budget here, do those include like cost of living increases, or is that what you were referring to when you spoke about contract negotiations coming up?
Yes, AJ, that's what I was referring to as far as the contract. And I think, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're going to start fairly soon, probably the next couple months, negotiating. Am I right?
Yes, I've been in touch with Tony Torres to set up. The key issue at the moment is the lack of membership in the union. So
right.
It will likely be solved with an MOU for 1 year is what he's put out there. But
okay.
So is it fair to assume that the wage line in here is likely to increase, or the proposed wage line a few percentage, few percentage points, or whatever it ends up, whatever ends up being negotiated?
I think Becky. Okay. I think Becky would know for sure, but I think over the past 10 years, I think we're hovering around an average of 2%.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to wrap my head around what's likely to happen here.
It's been 3%.
Oh, it has. Okay, Becky. Okay.
It's been 3% for about 20 years.
Okay.
Becky, last time we had the negotiations with the police union, there was one union member, a union of one.
There's none now.
That's a little more simple, a little more streamlined.
We're at a union of one, none.
Yep. So we'll see what happens next, but we have to do this process with them this year and see where that goes and see if anybody joins you. And if they don't, they could choose to make different choices. But at this point, we can't just walk away yet.
We certainly can't. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for Dan? Dan, thanks very much for your time,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dan.
and hope
Thank
you're
you, everybody.
feeling better fast.
Thanks, Dan.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
You too, Dan. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I think we're pretty much on track here. Next item I show on our agenda is the 4-town meeting prep. We spent some time on this in our last meeting. I think since then we've gotten a little bit more update on, we have the agenda for the 4-town meeting.
Really, I didn't.
We've,
We got the meeting invite today.
yeah, but there was an agenda attached to a prior meeting invite.
Oh.
Yeah,
Actually,
I
I
don't
think
think we have that.
it's attached to the bottom of what we got today.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh, was
yeah,
it?
okay, it's attached to that one also.
Yes, if you go to the bottom.
I see
I
it.
wonder if it's the same one. Maybe I should open that one up.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it looks like they've got a whopping 10 minutes planned for the discussion of assessment method.
Yeah. Well, it's only a 1-hour meeting.
Yeah, that's the thing. I brought this up last week, that it's only scheduled for 1 hour, an hour and 1 minute.
But I did talk to Doug Slaughter. I think that the time is going to probably vary from the agenda. They have allocated 2 hours and talk about a 2-hour meeting. So that
Okay.
it doesn't match what they're exactly. And they have also, like in the email I think you got today, they are asking that we set up our own rooms to go have private meetings in. And each town will do that on their own and then come back to the group. So they hadn't scheduled any time for that in the original agenda. So that's going to take a little bit of time as well.
Yeah, maybe more than a little.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is when we start at, we're going to start 40 minutes ahead of the meeting at 8, I think it's 8:25 or something. And for all 3 boards, we'll go into a Zoom meeting that will be posted. And then you'll switch over at the end of that meeting into the 4-town meeting. And then when they give us a break to talk to each other, we'll go back to that Zoom meeting, which I'll leave open for like 3 or 4 hours so we can go in and out of it as we need to.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Becky, you're going to schedule for meeting for all three committees,
Yes.
boards for 45 minutes in advance?
Yes.
And are we going to spend some time
And
strategizing at
we're
that time, or?
Open so that we can come back there. Yeah, it's to see, because the select board discussed this. Well, we had the 3 boards discussed it at your last meeting.
Yeah.
The select board had some discussion at their last meeting last week. You're having discussion tonight. And so the concern was, how do we pull these different conversations together? And it seemed best to do it right before the meeting in case there's new information. But as far as the thinking from the select board, their main concern is that they've selected a spokesperson from the select board and are kind of asking for the finance committee and the school committee to also, so that because it's on Zoom, we need to be clear on what, people need to be clear on what they're saying. So there's, hope that what comes out of your conversation tonight, you can be clear on who will present that, whether it's one person or two people, but you want to zero in on who's going to be helping deliver the message to the 4 towns. And one of the biggest things that the Finance Committee will be presenting is the current financial condition of the town. In a brief summary with not, in just a few sentences, which is the typical thing. They go around the room and collect that information.
So that's, you say that's the role of the Finance Committee, is to make that point.
Yep.
Or send that message. And then what's the select board's message? Or is there also a school committee? The other two, are they also gonna be?
I think the message is about the long-term goal of statutory.
Is that coming from the select board, Becky?
I think it can come from both. And then I think there was a desire to do some listening potentially, or not do listening before determining what the town would want to push for this year. And that's what we want to try to everybody needs to try to get to the same page if possible. And if not, I don't know.
Bob,
I'd just like to say what my impression was from the last meeting we had. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought we agreed that we would maintain our position that we want to move to statutory. I'm not sure I would use the word in the long term, but I'd rather it more urgent, some kind of more urgent message than that. But we then would be willing to listen to any counter argument to our position that we want to move towards statutory in a significant way, and then be willing to certainly be open to whatever those arguments might be, but they're not going to be made by us.
yeah, I thought we came to a slightly different conclusion. I thought we concluded that we are still committed to the statutory approach. We've been patient for a long time, and we've been working with these 4 towns for a long time. We've made some progress, and we're still committed to statutory.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
I just
Maybe my problem was in the long term, and I've heard it all by this point, so I'm just taking that out of my notes. If you guys all agree that it's just willing to listen to, well, we are still committed to statutory.
Susie.
But we also had a discussion, part of the discussion last week was the idea of being prepared to take a pause in terms of moving from 45% upward. And that pause would be based on looking at how the pandemic revenues or lack of revenues and the state changing its wealth formula. And so we would want to hear how the other towns were being affected by some of these pieces. And so I felt like the meeting did not come to a conclusion about what next year's percentage would be. And it didn't come to a conclusion about the term of pause versus not pause.
Yes, Susie, I guess I heard it a little different. I thought we talked about, yeah, we're willing to pause, but that was just an internal discussion. That's something we would be communicating to the 4 towns. This is more something internally that, depending on what kind of information we picked up from this meeting, we may need to consider something like that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. And so I think that it's not a definitive. We had decided to listen and to hold those ideas to us ourselves.
Right, and just to add to that, I thought there was an explicit decision to avoid articulating a numerical target at this meeting. That we should articulate our sort of broad, big picture goal of moving towards statutory, but not at least commit to or argue for a specific percentage formula at this meeting. But obviously we'd revisit that for the next stage of the negotiations.
George?
Yeah, and I would say, and if that's all true, and I think, we decided the first thing we're going to do is listen, because the first hour or whatever, they're going to present to us the current picture, they're going to present to us a budget, and then we're going to caucus, and we can decide at that point to what extent we want to articulate this, and how to do it. But I think we're all on the same page. We all agree that they need to know, if it's not at this meeting, the subsequent meeting in January, February, that we definitely intend on moving towards the statutory. But we do need to take the temperature in the room before we really address it. And we'll have that caucus opportunity to really work on a response, is what I would expect.
Makes sense.
Becky, where does the caucus part fit in? Where does that come into this agenda?
It'll probably come after the assessment discussion. I mean, there'll be, I think as soon as we go around the room and Shutesbury says anything about statutory, other people will want to talk, will want to caucus.
Also, I think Becky, maybe George, you probably both and Jim will remember that we didn't make a decision about the split in past years that I've been on the committee in the first meeting.
Right.
So the subject will be broached, it will be discussed, there'll be a kind of an open exchange of views from the different committees and towns, but the real deal won't be cut until February or whatever the second meeting is scheduled, right?
Right.
So we have to make our point of view well known, and our willingness to listen well known, and then see what happens. As you say, just listen to what people have to say, feel the temperature of the room, and talk about it. But we're not going to have any. There's not going to be any. There probably won't be any numbers at this meeting, right?
Doug said he would put together a similar sheet on assessments as he did last year.
I see.
And when I talked to the select board, they were talking about, the potential for that. And I asked if I should ask for them to include a 65%. I think last year it went to 50% and stopped, and then 100%.
Yeah.
So I did ask that they put 65% on that sheet.
Excellent. Good.
So Doug should have a 65% option on his, as part of his proposal or his scenario or his analysis.
He emailed back he would, yeah.
Becky, did Doug indicate if he's going to share these FY22 revenue and expense projections in advance of Saturday's meeting, or are we expecting to see it for the first time at the meeting?
I asked him if he could get them out ahead of time. He said he would try, but he was uncertain.
Okay.
And then he talked at length about how difficult putting any of those numbers together is.
I can imagine, yeah.
Because the one thing, the critical piece for towns this going into FY22 is the fact that the numbers typically for Chapter 70 are based on enrollments in October. Enrollments in all 4 towns are down in October. Some more than others. We know from what Steve said, Pelham is down 20 choice students, as well as people that are homeschooling and have turned to private or parochial schools. So the numbers are, if they run FY22 Chapter 70A the same way they typically do, we all get killed. We all lose a minimum of $100,000. So that's part of the unknown is, will they grant us another year holding harmless or will they not? And I'm talking about the state. Susie's hand is up.
Susie. Yep.
And so that's in the news, and it's not about Shutesbury or Amherst Regional. That's across the state.
Yep.
And there's a lot of upsetness, and it's just another part of the pandemic. And so it shapes at least a temporary reality. And, you know, the state is probably not known for its ability to adjust quickly, but it's across the state. So the whole bunch of information that's not known, it just keeps coming. So I have no idea what the state's gonna come up with for a solution, and we don't know.
But it's a lot of money to our region.
It's a lot of money to all the regions.
Right, but the whole harmless for Amherst, isn't it huge for Amherst?
Well, the hold harmless for Amherst is that separate issue if they change the form. We're not even talking about that.
Right.
We're just talking about enrollments.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Andy Steinberg, and he said enrollments are down, to, they're terrible.
Yeah.
The homeschooling is huge now.
Yep. And he asked how it was in Shutesbury, which I think we're a little bit better than they are. But it's, Amherst is bad. I'm not sure where Leverett is. Pelham is really bad because of the loss of choice students. So there's, it all will depend on how the state responds to this situation. If they hold the October numbers as they traditionally do, everybody gets whacked. And because it's statewide, there's a better chance that they will do as they did this year and just fund at the same level as last year.
Becky, the enrollments that would matter in this context are the enrollments at the middle and high school from our 4 towns, right? It would not, our enrollment changes at our elementary school would not factor into this discussion.
I think it depends how bad. I think when the 4 towns talk, they talk about their overall financial condition, and with, our elementary schools are the other, 30% of our budget. So it all matters to the 4 towns.
Sure, but in terms of this question about how the foundation budget. Okay, gotcha.
But the point too, Becky, just so I make sure I understand this, lower enrollments will mean lower Chapter 70 for our town, which is a big source of revenue for our town.
Yeah, so the bigger the source of revenue, the more vulnerability. I think Bob had his hand up earlier.
I just wanted to say, I absolutely understand that. And one of the elements that is part of this discussion, just mentioned briefly, was Pelham is losing 20 choice students, which will diminish their overall student body, but it doesn't diminish their Chapter 70 because they don't get Chapter 70 money. That you only get Chapter 70 money, as far as I understand it, from your own students, your own homegrown students, and Pelham is losing some of those as well, and so is the region. People are homeschooling, as Becky said, or shipping their kids out to private or parochial schools, and that has really reduced the enrollment even dramatically, and it's going to reduce the Chapter 70 along with it, potentially anyway, right?
But I think, Bob, they can get hit, with the loss of choice money because they're overly dependent on it.
They are, yes.
So they're more vulnerable. It's not, it used to be just extra money for Leverett, or it's not anymore. The longer you are part of the choice system, the more it becomes, part of your revenue stream.
Yeah.
Susie has her hand up.
I don't think from the notes and from what I remember that it was the 20 students were only choice. I think he just stated Pelham lost 20 students from their elementary school roster. So it could be regular students who have gone out because a lot of people weren't happy with some of the remote learning. So they could be town residents that have just moved out or sent their kids out. So who knows how it's gonna, what parts it's gonna affect.
We should ask him to clarify that, because in my conversation, I think he told me choice. So I will ask him to clarify and email you guys.
Wow, what a bad scene. Well, this is really a substantial financial issue for us to be aware of as a finance committee. because it could have, very, very dramatic implications for building our budget. If we lose that, if we lose a lot of revenue from the state.
Susie,
And I think it's also part of the same picture is it will really affect the education for our students, our sending them to regional school that in a program that might be drained. So the effect is in multiple directions.
Yeah.
And I think I wonder what the state will choose to do because it's happening across the state. It's not just about us.
Yeah, across the country too.
yep. Yep.
So should
We
we
started
talk
up the
about
schools in New York, right, AJ?
Sorry?
They start the schools up in New York this week?
Yeah, Monday, elementary schools are reopening.
And so is Shutesbury
Yeah,
Elementary,
that's right.
December 7th.
Monday.
Monday. So should we talk about the presentation, how we're going to present our finances to the 4 towns?
Yeah, we've got two things. One is we got the message, which I think we're sort of clear on what our message is, and then who is delivering the message, right?
Yeah.
Well, we talked
Can I-
about the message in terms of, well, I'm not talking about in terms of the assessment, but when Becky was saying they go around the towns and she was saying the select board or the finance committee could present our financial situation. But have we, the finance committee, have what we want to present in terms of our financial situation to the other towns? Have we really agreed on that? And do we have some points that we would want to make?
Well, I would just suggest we make a point that we did put a lot of free cash towards the budget last year to lessen the impact of the COVID pandemic on our taxpayers, but that's not a sustainable model for us going
Right.
forward. And also we have other pressures and demands being put on our reserves this year. That is the school roof and the culvert project, which are projects that total a couple of $1 million. And so we should make sure they're aware of that the other towns are aware that we have financial obligations coming up that are going to be very substantial, Don't you think those points should be made?
Sounds good.
Those
Yes,
are
on both.
important
Yeah.
points.
The tax rate has been certified by DOR. And I guess I think it's worth mentioning along with the fact that we used the 220 because we were at the door of 25 per thousand. And we were able to buy us we got the rate down 93 cents just from that. And then we dropped to another, 40 cents. So in total, we dropped $1. We were able to reduce our tax rate by $1.40 for a temporary stay from hitting the limit. I think if we couple those two, it helps explain why we did what we did.
And as Bob said, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Right.
Does that mean our tax rate would be 23? So the certified number is 2261, right?
Yep.
And so if we put the 93 cents back, that'd be 2354.
Yep.
So we're basically at 2354.
Yeah, I think that's where we need to speak from because we just have a one-time 93 cent.
Right.
Right. So basically, we're bumping up against the ceiling of Proposition 2.5.
And that's a huge issue because we're ahead of the other 3 towns. And I
Right,
think,
so that has to be part of our presentation.
yeah. And Amber's dropped.
Would it be relevant to mention that unemployment in Shutesbury has gone from about 2% up to almost 12%?
What is it in the other towns?
And it was among our residents in Shutesbury that's part of how we're feeling the difficulties that COVID is putting upon us. But employment is rising. I'm sure it's rising in Leverett and Pelham and everywhere else. But that is a number that apparently the state has published, from what I understand.
Jim, I checked the number last week and through September, we were at 6.8.
Mhm,
And all 4 towns were in the 6 to 6.9.
mhm.
So
Becky,
we'd have to verify your number. I haven't seen
Yeah,
your,
well,
Well, that could have been just a little bit, that might have been a month or two earlier. Unemployment's come down a lot, probably over the
No,
last,
no.
no?
If
no,
you
it's going
check,
up.
it's barely creeped up to the 6.
Oh, so it wasn't up in the teens for a while?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't know if that's something we really want to bring up. It'd probably come up anyways, because it's true for
Yeah.
every town.
Yeah, it doesn't really distinguish our situation different from any
Right.
other. Yeah, so let's
Right.
forget that. Okay.
The fact that we have 2 big capital projects to manage in a small town, that matters. So the roof and the culvert matter. And those could affect our tax rate.
Yes, and we also have we also have a very vocal number of citizens that are pushing us to drive towards the statutory somehow or other. I don't know if you want to mention that at this point or not, but that's certainly true.
Yeah, when
Well,
we
I
caucus and we talk about presenting the statutory, we probably want to mention that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure from the voters. I also wonder if we want to mention that, at a special town meeting, we had some cash out there that we wanted to take out of funding the budget because we didn't need to anymore. And there were a substantial number of people that showed up and wanted to use more cash to lower our tax bills. So it is an indicator of how a lot of the people in our town are feeling.
Right.
Good, bad, or otherwise, it is.
But other towns might say exactly the same thing.
However, the other towns don't have a tax rate as high as ours, or do they?
Remember, Becky just said Amherst's tax rate went down. That's true, but their annual tax bill went up. The average
Right.
single family tax bill went up,
Yeah.
and the gap between their average single tax bill and ours just got way bigger than it used to be. It used to be it was $2,000 last year. I don't know what it is this year. I'm going to go online maybe before this meeting.
8,000.
No.
Yeah, theirs is 8,000. Theirs was
I
8,000.
thought you meant the difference. Sorry.
No,
Bob.
no, theirs is 8,000, ours is 55 or something like that.
Well, I think theirs went up to, theirs was on the edge of 8,000 last year. I think it's 82 this
I
year. Right?
don't think we'll find that number yet.
It was in the paper a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So is ours in there yet, though?
I'll go online. I'll go to the database online and see who's
Find out
published.
there- Yeah, because they just certified our tax rate yesterday.
Actually, I can do it now, quite honestly.
Yeah. So if we have it, but that's the other thing the other towns can bring up and flip it is, oh, but Shutesbury has the lowest tax bills, which is very true.
The average.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying we should say that to them. I'm just saying, let's keep this in context.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, but we got to think about what you want to say. Because that one goes the other way. Then we get
That's
it.
why I get, just one thing. That's why I always get concerned about everybody talking about tax rates, because that doesn't tell the real story.
Right,
Well,
but the tax
It does
rate,
tell one story, and that is we are reaching the limit.
Right.
So we're bumping the limit, right?
That should be the message on it, that we're bumping the limit.
And that is a statutory issue. We can't exceed that by law.
Right.
And, and I'll tell you, Amherst knows that. I know Andy Steinberg certainly knows that. The question on this all along has been, how quickly can Amherst start to pick up? Because they're the yang, we're the yang. Every dollar we save, they have to pay. They're the ones that get the brunt of us benefiting from statutory, and they can't just jump to it in one leap. That's what this has all been about.
Yeah.
Just step by step.
Wes,
If somebody brilliant can explain this to me, if the statutory method has been developed by the state based on a variety of factors that ultimately based on a community's ability to pay, why would the other towns be so opposed to that. We're kind of talking about reaching the limit. We're talking about respective household taxes on an annual basis, but the state has created a formula to try to make this distribution, these assessments, more equitable. And I fail to see the logic in them. Okay, if they're worse off, or if they're less able to pay, why are they opposed to moving to the statutory method? Somebody explain that to me.
I think the simplest explanation is that it doesn't benefit them. And so, I mean, that I have to say that that's been my concern about the way our town has advocated for this position at times, is that it's sounded to me like the argument has been, our current method is bad for Shutesbury, therefore we should abandon that method for the statutory method, which I don't think is actually a strong position for us to be arguing, because it basically puts us in exactly the same position that we've been critical of, which is every town just advocating for the method that's going to benefit them most. And I have supported, I think, a message that I think Bob has articulated in the past, and Dan from the school committee, which is that that we support this assessment method because it's the fairest and most equitable method, not because it benefits our town the most. So I think when we argue that way, it actually makes it easier for other towns to just reject our argument and say, well, Shutesbury is just asking for the method that's going to benefit them most. And so I always am sort of like trying to push us to talk about this in terms of fairness and equity more so.
That's a very good point, AJ. I absolutely agreed there. But I also want to make another small point, which is that when George made the statement that every dollar that we don't pay in our assessment, Amherst pays, that is true. It's pretty much going back to Amherst. But if you look at the budget of Amherst, I think it's north of $65 million. And our budget is about 1/10 of that. So that $1 that we save is very significant, much more significant in terms of our overall spending than the dollar that they have to spend. That really is an important point to make too. They have a much, much larger budget. And so the change in the assessment method will affect that budget in a fractional way compared to the way that money spent and raised here affects our budget. That's something that should be understood too.
Susie.
I think another piece of this is the state aid, the education, the Chapter 70 money. And if we're going to care about things, I think we have to care how much support Amherst may or may not lose from Chapter 70.
George, how far back do these discussions go with the four towns about moving, from the perspective of Shutesbury going towards statutory? How many years has this been?
Yeah, so the Shutesbury put together a special committee. There was quite a number of people on it, a few in this meeting. I know Mike Vinsky was on it, and myself. Mike, were you on it? Well, Mike was certainly attending. Anyways, 2015, we put together a committee, and we pretty much came to the conclusion that the statutory method is a fair and equitable method. It also achieves a lot of the goals that a lot of the towns do think are important. Predictable pricing, predictable and stable, less volatile changes in assessments from year to year. If there was a averaging component on the per pupil, on the portion that is calculated based on population. So then we presented it in November of 2015 to the four towns. And that didn't go over very well. April's on this meeting. She can tell you, she was sitting up front with me and I forget the other two, Eric and Gary.
Jeff.
I forget Gary's last name.
Jeff, wasn't Jeff Lacy part of it?
Not sitting on the front and not presenting it to the four towns. That was me, April, the finance chair at the time, Gary, and Eric. And so Eric Stocker. So we presented it to them. They didn't like it. We told them, we thought that a gradual method, pretty much everybody on the committee agreed, our special committee agreed that 4 years was a reasonable amount of time to expect that to happen. So if that was the case, it would have been 16, 17, 18, fiscal 19, we would have been to 100%. Of course, pushback was tremendous. And every year it was a negotiation and, fairly contentious, put together. And so in 2016, we put together a working group. The four towns agreed a working group would be put together, and through the summer of 2016, preparing for 2017, we did not conclude our work, and we came up with an alternative to the assessment where 10% of the statutory method would be used. Maybe at that point, 20%. I forget exactly when we started tinkering with the formula. I think it's 2016, we went 10%. And then 2017, we decided, okay, we'll just go to 20% statutory method and we'll just continue to meet. So the group continued to meet through 2017, got towards 2018, still really nothing substantial came out of that. I'm a little hazy on it. I got a lot going on in this crazy head of mine, but every year it's just been a negotiation since then. And every year we have been moving more and more away from the 5 year rolling average of enrollments and using and weighting the formula more towards the statutory having more substantial piece of that calculation. I'll tell you from my perspective through all that, it has been a fight. In the beginning for Amherst, it was over $500,000 adjustment if we just went straight to statutory. And Amherst was very clear right from the start, there's no way we're going to do that. Call it what you want, say what you want, but we are going to demand that the budget be cut. And that was their position for many years. And in my mind, there was two things that, you can't predict the future, no matter how much we knew about the statutory. We didn't really know if the statutory was going to continue to benefit us because it had not benefited us for the previous 10 years. So we kind of wanted to see how that was going to go. For me, it was part of the logic of not running straight to statutory. I didn't want to regret it 5 years down the road. And then the other piece was, I forget what the other piece was, but there was another critical piece in there. And so there was the talk. So I was thinking maybe a 5-year 50-50 method might work. But the other piece in my mind is where we really, I think we're much closer. And that is the jump from statutory now for Amherst. I'd have to see the numbers, and I'm hoping to see them on Saturday. It's not $500,000. Now it's getting to be something that's within reach of Amherst. And so when the pandemic ends, the students go back to school. They're going to. I mean, a lot, we talked about what's normal, what's not normal, but we know they'll go back to school. That's going to be good for the local economy. That's going to be good for Amherst. It's going to bring more water income in. The water and sewer income has been a real problem for them. There's been other sources of income that they've lost, the restaurant taxes and all that. That's going to come back to some extent. Now, another 2 years, the jump to statutory for them could very well be within reach. And so that's why I'm okay with being firm in the statutory as much as the position I've been in the past is we shouldn't. I do think the time is here where it is the best method. It's a standard set by the state. As much as we in the Amherst region might think we're smarter than the state, it's the standard that all other municipalities have to live by. And it is built on a lot of facts. It may not be perfect, but the income of the towns, the income taxes on those tax returns of the people who live in those towns is real. And so, I think this year, you saw it in the notes, and I probably used the word, we shouldn't be antagonistic this year. I think this year, everybody is in the same boat, and it's a boat with a lot of leaks. And for us to say our leak is bigger than your leak is just not an argument. We won't benefit from that argument. So for me, let's listen, let's caucus. But I do think that, we probably for this year should just kind of go along and say, we'll settle for the 45, but we should push maybe a little for more and let people know we would like to. But I really don't think we should be sticking our thumb in everybody's eye this year. But again, I got the floor here and I'm talking a lot. I apologize, but let them know that we do believe in the statutory method and we will continue to push for it. If not this year, certainly in the future.
George, like you say, we have to see the numbers. Last year when we talked about this, the difference between 50 and 60% was a couple of grand for Amherst. It was really not a lot of money. So we got to see the numbers. We got to look at the different scenarios that they draw up for us and actually see what it really means, and then hear what Amherst has to say about their financial circumstances and what the impact is if we go option A, B, or C, this year.
Agreed. Yep. As much as I was immersed in all those numbers and all those scenarios, and we ran so many of them on the working groups, which I was a part of 2 times in a row, I am a little fuzzy on it. So I would have to see it all, but it'll come back.
Okay. We
George,
still
I'll
haven't.
send you what the numbers from last year.
Say that again, Becky?
I'll send George the numbers where we came out last year at the 45. Or did I already? Do you have them?
I probably have it. I'll definitely do some. This is a busy week at work this week, but
So don't.
Friday night at the latest, I will sit down and try and absorb some of this. Yeah, I have something here. Modified budget 526.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it's got the well, I don't know if it's got the analysis. This doesn't have the analysis of the different scenarios, Becky. If you have,
Okay.
oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's got all those colored. Yeah, here it is.
Right, the colors.
Yep, I've got it. It's here. It's sideways, but I got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
definitely look it over.
It's after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Me too.
So let me remind you, one of the things you're, I think, going to try to decide about was spokespeople.
We're going to meet at 8:25, so
That's what we can punt.
on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll make that decision Saturday morning.
Okay.
Becky, did you said that we're going to get a separate invite for the Shutesbury group?
Yeah, I'll send it out to all the 3 committees.
We don't have it yet. Okay.
Great.
Is it 8:25 or 8:15?
8:20, 8:20.
Okay.
It'll be in your email, right?
It'll be in the
Yeah.
invite.
Becky, Becky, most of our names are not on that list, that long list of those that seem to be in the group that's going to be welcome. Curiously, Melody's is, but mine isn't, and I don't think anyone else in the on the finance committee is on that list. Is that going to be a problem in terms of being able to log in or sign in?
I will ask Doug's assistant. She'll be able to tell me.
Okay.
She's the one it's Sasha, I think she sent out the email.
Yeah.
I saw my email address on it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe yours is on it, but not all of ours, even though we all
I'm
said,
not-
yes, we'll be there, but still, it didn't seem to get through the system. So I don't know whether that it would exclude us automatically or not.
I'm not on there either.
Yeah.
That's
So when I
good
heard, that's
question.
why I resent it to everybody because the names weren't there, but I'll ask her if she needs to have them on that list.
Yeah, along the same
Okay.
lines, Becky, that message that came out today from the assistant indicated that we need to send a list of people for the breakout groups so that she can set them up properly, these breakout groups.
That's not my understanding because she also said that the towns need to set up their own breakout groups.
I think that's what I read too, Becky. So we just need to get.
It's not a breakout group within the Zoom, within their Zoom meeting. It's a completely separate Zoom meeting that we're
Each town is responsible to set up their own.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
people are just gonna go in and out of the main, it's not Zoom, go-to meeting or something.
Google, yeah.
Google Meet. Yeah.
okay, so you're gonna send us information for 2 meetings then, right? One for is the pre-meeting
And-
at 8:20, and then a separate, or is it the same? We'll use the same invite for the breakout?
Yes,
Let's just leave it open. That'll be easier.
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave it open for like 3 hours,
Okay.
You can jump in and out.
4
All
hours.
right, well, so can we make a motion to?
Well, we didn't finish the agenda.
That's okay.
That's okay?
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, with me too.
I apologize.
It can wait until next time?
Mhm.
Okay.
When is next time?
Hmm?
When is next time?
Yeah, that's, it's 2 weeks?
It's
Do we-
December 15th with fire and library.
Yeah, and we have, 2 budget reviews. Budget review with the fire chief and with the library on December 15.
And we have both their budgets. Okay. Both their
Where were you,
requests.
Bob? Bob, were you trying to make a motion?
I was gonna make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second that.
Okay. We have a vote?
Arvanitis, aye.
Right here, I.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. All right, so we'll see everybody on Saturday morning.
See you.
Bright and early.
8:20
Right.
8:20 bright and early.
Expect
Coffee.
pictures.
The
You all have a nice week.
You too.
Night.
Good night.